And usually it stems from childhood or past experiences that you haven't healed from yet. So that's where you need to go first and heal beyond those parts. So then you can add like these sprinkles on top, so to speak.
I'm joined today by someone I've spoken to on a podcast before, and I'm really interested to chat to her again because it's been a few years now since I chatted to her on record, and I'm really interested how her business is going, how her job's going, how she is helping now many professional athletes in their own dreams. This woman that I'm speaking to today is a former national champion. She won the Australian national title in 2018, which I did have to double check that with her. That was the same year I won the under 23, so I should have remembered that. We've gone very different pathways since then, but I think both doing some pretty cool things to help other athletes now, despite our own careers not necessarily going on continuously upward trajectories, which is always the way that careers go. And I'm sure she'll talk to us about some athletes who have been managing that problem in their own way. But Shannon Malseed, welcome to Train Like a Monk.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, I didn't introduce your current job title there because I want to get straight into that from the top of the episode. So what do you do?
It's such a huge question. I still struggle to actually put this into a pretty little elevator pitch, like pocket for everybody. But essentially, now I would call myself a performance mindset coach for athletes or high performers, high achievers. And essentially what that means is I work with clients one-on-one to pretty much put all the puzzle pieces together of their limiting beliefs and their blocks and their emotional wounds, so we can find what is actually stopping them from being the version of themselves that they want to be. And we work together to heal and grow beyond all of those things, and so they can move into who they want to be and create the life that they want to create.
So it's interesting because when I think I spoke to you last on the podcast, you weren't actually working with too many athletes, and you were sort of at that point fresh out of your own career, which we're going to get into pretty quickly. But now you've moved into working with athletes again. Do you think it was just a bit of time away from the sport was required for you personally to sort of be able to, I guess you had a tough run at the end of the sport, which we'll touch on, but did you need some time away from the cycling side, especially completely, before you started working with athletes and specifically cyclists again?
Yeah, 100%. It was a timing thing. I had to heal my own relationship with the sport before I felt like I could really be a good coach for athletes. I did actually have, naturally, when I first moved into my coaching business, I had so many cyclists that followed me, and so naturally I did have a couple of cyclists that I worked with, but even in those dynamics I found myself have this, I had to keep checking myself and being like, don't just hate the sport, like don't just tell them that this is not for them, or like be careful of like you influencing their career choices. Because everyone in the sport, and we will get into this, but everyone that I coach has had the same problems or is going through the same problems as what I went through. So it's really hard for me to sit on the other side and not be like, you know, just throw a table, just flip the tables and walk away.
Go do something different, go start your own business.
So I definitely had to give myself some time to heal those parts of me that just wanted to give a big FU to the sport. And before I started to work with more athletes now, and I feel like I'm in a really good place where I actually enjoy cycling again, and I can watch races and not feel like I hate everybody. So yeah, it's good.
Good to hear. And I think I certainly know even cyclists that we've had on this podcast before, and then plenty that I know personally that have worked with you. So the fact that you're able to now give back to the sport in a positive way, when, at that time when I spoke to you last on a podcast at least, was, you weren't probably in the position where you felt like you wanted to give too much to the sport, because at that time, the experience that you'd had was pretty fresh and yeah, wasn't that positive in a way. So then it's hard to put yourself in a position where you're trying to do positive things in that space when you don't feel that way about it necessarily. But we will just go so that we've got some context around what we're talking about now. If you can just take us back to your racing days and what your mindset was like, I guess more so as you were coming through. So to give people a bit of background, you had, I guess, every pathway is different, but yours, I guess, was sort of more what you'd expect in terms of battling away at a domestic level for a while, slowly getting more and more results there, and then getting to the point where you were able to get a spot on a pro team thanks to your results at a domestic level and your small amount of racing overseas. Then able to, this is not necessarily a normal one, when you're able to go on and win the national championships. And then from that point where you won the national championships, I guess then, and you touch on this a lot on your social media now, I've noticed, and a lot of people have probably heard this story if they've followed you in the past, but do you want to just shed some light on what your mindset was like throughout that journey? It's obviously a massive question and there's a lot to go into, but just how it changed throughout your career and how your relationship, I guess, with the sport and yourself changed?
Yeah, it was a really big transition turning from domestic to pro. And I feel like that's where the wheels fell out from underneath me, so to speak. Pardon the pun. But yeah, I loved cycling when I was doing it domestically. I really, really enjoyed my life. I enjoyed the training. I enjoyed the racing. I enjoyed all the parts in between. But something kind of shifted when I started to desire to turn pro and then quickly turned pro after that. Like, yes, there was years slogging away, but actually I had a pretty good pathway into the professional cycling ranks. Like we
So
had...
just quickly, when you were domestic, were you working, like, or was everything about riding? So like, were you all chips in already when you were domestically and everything was about becoming a pro?
Yeah, so I was working just a part-time, like casual job at a bike shop. So everything was about cycling. Yeah,
Standard part-time job for a cyclist there.
yeah. So I loved it. We were in Ballarat. I worked at Cyclescape, and like the team there really supported me. So anytime I wanted to go away for racing, I went away to Europe for months on end, and they'd just be like, "Yeah, no worries, you got a job when you get back." And it was just like this really beautiful family that supported me throughout my early domestic days. And yeah, then when I actually won the nationals in my first year as a pro as well, so I kind of hit the ground running, thought that I was hot shit, thought that I was going to go to Europe and just be like winning all the races. I was like, oh, well, I'm the best in Australia, so obviously I'm going to be able to ride with the best in Europe. And it just was not the case. As you can imagine, my first year over there started with the classics, and the wet Belgian cobbled classics really hit me like they do most people when they do them for the first time. And so I was rudely shocked with the transition over there.
So had you raced in Belgium at all before then, or your first experience there was in the actual big classics?
Yeah, I had. I'd done like, you know, the Kermesses and like a few of the bigger races when I was on the Aussie team.
Yep.
But it was nothing like doing it for the first time as an actual professional athlete. And my first race there was, I think, Drenthe.
Yep.
And I got hit by an ambulance. So it was like this horrible, horrible start to the season. And then from there, I had actually a good time. I went to the Commonwealth Games, and then I went to China, and I got a good result in the Chongming Island. But then I didn't finish a race for the rest of the season. They were all women's world tour races, and I was just not up to that level yet. So it was just a really, really, really hard first year for me, just getting shocked to like what it's actually like to be a professional cyclist in the Women World Tour.
And I guess probably for the years before that, had you, I guess, to get to that professional level, you'd been winning quite a bit, I'd imagine, or at least having some good results along the way to get there. probably riding that high consistently. And then I think that's for a lot of people experience similar when you get to the level where all of a sudden you're not one of the best, and instead of fighting for the win every race, you're fighting just to finish.
Yeah, yeah. And then there was like all of the travel mixed in with it. Like we didn't have a big budget in the team that I was in, so we were driving to every race, and sometimes there was like a couple of days drive and we'd get there the day before and then we'd race, and it was just like this hectic whirlwind of a year. Felt like there was no gaps, no breaks in between. I was away from home for 9 months of the year for the first time ever. And it's just like, this little 23-year-old who thought that everything was going to be amazing because she won the biggest bike race that she'd ever won. And then she went overseas and she was like, what the fuck is happening? This is not working the way that I thought it would. And I didn't also have the tools to be able to cope mentally. I'd attached my self-worth to the races, and I thought that everyone in Australia was like zooming in on me in the race and putting a giant spotlight on me. And I was just disappointing them every single time. And I didn't know how to cope with that mentally, emotionally. And then it just really affected me as a whole, as a human.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of challenges there that are similar to what I've faced in the past, similar to what a lot of cyclists have faced. What were you using to overcome those at that time? Did you have many tools, I guess, in your toolkit to try and get through those, or was it just complete avoidance? Or what were you doing at that time to try and get through that period?
That year I didn't have really anything. Like maybe I was journaling, maybe I was trying to meditate every now and then. But really what I needed was like, I'm obviously biased right now, guys, but what I needed was someone like me to come in and what I do now and just really have a sounding board to really listen to me, to understand what was going on underneath, and then to help me see all of the blind spots and how my perspective was so warped. Like I thought that I needed to be the best now, otherwise I would never be the best and I would never get there. But in reality, it was my first year as a professional cyclist and I expected so much of myself, but I had no one there kind of telling me, hey, this is going to be like at least a 5-year thing for you to be able to even be competitive, and then maybe even 5 more years for you to be on the top like you want to be. And so I just didn't have that long-term perspective. Like I said, I attached my entire self-worth to the results on the paper and what everyone else thought of me. And because I wasn't coping mentally and emotionally, I also wasn't a very good person to be around. Like I was really negative. My team director at the time, I remember him saying to me, like, you just have a really bad attitude. And I was like, wow, like, thanks. And there was no other help though. It was just like, you have a bad attitude, go and deal with it. And I just wanted to be hugged and held and told that everything was going to be okay. I'm doing a great job. It's just going to be a process and all of these things that you need to hear, but you don't get told back then. Or at least by the people that you want to get told. Maybe you get told by your mum and dad, but that's about it.
Well, and it's a tricky one because I've seen it a lot before, and I'm sure you've seen it plenty of times with people that you're working with. But what tends to happen, especially in sport and with a lot of other careers, is when things go well, they tend to go better, and when things go bad, they tend to go worse. So you end up in this either downward spiral or just like positive lift phase, and then either way, it stems from, which you just touched on, is just attaching yourself to the results. So what you tend to see is someone that might come in, start the classics, for example. So at the time we're recording this, opening weekends just happened. So someone might come into opening weekend, have a bit of bad luck, just have a bad day for whatever reason, have a crash, anything, start that badly. They've just gone, okay, I've done all this work. I didn't get the result I wanted. I'm not a good enough cyclist. I'm a terrible person. Like that, all those thoughts that start to go through, they're feeling that way at the dinner table that night. They're not going to be like joking around, having a good time with their teammates, sharing funny stories because they're feeling that way about themselves. They're not going to be that nice to be around. Then it compounds because the team is thinking, okay, well, not only has this person not been useful in the race, they're also not nice to be around, they don't have a good attitude, all of these things. That then transfers to the next race because the team's not happy with the rider. The rider then really struggles to perform because they've already got the self-doubt, they're feeling it from the team as well. And then that can just carry throughout the whole spring. And then you often see then gets to the point where if a rider doesn't get a break throughout the spring, then they'll and then they haven't been performing, they might start just getting chucked into more and more races. Then you find yourself in a position like you where you're just struggling to finish races throughout the whole season. You're getting raced on and on and on. You're not getting any fitter. Your head's in the wrong place to be able to perform. And then, it's tough to also find any other benefits from going to the races and being around your teammates because you're not that nice to be around. And then if we look at the flip side of that coin, say you start the opening season well, you're in the right move that goes to the finish, you get a good result. Every teammate's giving you a pat on the back. You're telling all these stories straight after. Your confidence is through the roof. You're quite literally glowing after a race like that. Everyone's happy to be around you. Everyone wants to be your friend because you've just got this result. And then, the team gives you another opportunity at the next race because of that. You've got confidence at the next race. It just goes on and on and on. So it is really so much, I guess. And I give this piece of advice when I used to, I think, more so think, oh, don't worry, it's just the first race of the season, which obviously there's a lot to be said about, and we'll get into how you work with someone when it doesn't go well. But I think for me now, from a physiology standpoint, I actually really focus on, as much as it might not make sense to peak early in the season, because then it's hard to hold that later on. For particularly Australians, because they're going away from home, putting themselves in that environment, I really like to just say, look, you've got the advantage where here you can train really well, show up to the start line in good condition. You've got that advantage over the Europeans training in winter. Show up, start the season really well, even if it means that you're coming in like pretty much tip-top shape. If mentally you get that good start to the season, it makes it so much easier to carry that on. I guess my question for you is, and you might have worked with athletes already this year that have had this experience, when someone starts the season poorly and you want to stop that spiral happening and just get them out of that, what's your go-to? What are you saying to these athletes that don't get the start that they want?
It's always looking at what is underneath. Like, why are you upset about this result? It's not because the result, is because what you're making it mean about yourself. Like you said, they make it mean all of these things. They have a story about themselves that plays out. I'm not good enough. I'm never going to make it. What if I don't get there? And there's so much fear in the professional athlete or the high achiever that says, if I don't get to this level that I think that I need to get to in order to make me good enough, then I'm never going to be good enough. And this is where the anxiety, you're at the start line and you're like, this is it. It's either do or die. Like, I either perform in this race or I'm packing my bags and going home. I'm useless. I'm worthless. And what's happening is we're, again, attaching that one result to our self-worth, to our identity, to who we believe we are as a person. And so first we have to find that understanding for them. What is underneath? What are they making it mean? And so for some of my athletes at the moment, we talk about core wounds. These are the limiting beliefs or the wounds for which most of our thought processes stem from, of our fears or our anxieties or what we believe about ourselves. And for example, one of my athletes at the moment has this core wound of, I won't matter. If I don't get the result, then I won't matter. No one will care about me. I'll be insignificant. I don't matter in life. And so when we come from that place, of course you're going to be worried about whether or not you win or you lose, because you think that you don't matter if you lose and you think that you do matter if you win. So it's about then reconstructing a new foundation of self-identity or self-worth that's based off an internal knowing that you are enough regardless of the result. And that takes time. That's not something that we just land in after one session. It takes time and reinforcement and subconscious reprogramming and all of these things that happen over a really long period of time. Not even like a couple of months. I'm talking like a few years of really, like I said, reconstructing those foundations so that we can fully believe in ourselves from the inside out and we don't need constant validation. Validation is something also that is okay to want. It's okay to want to get the win and be like, yes, like all of my work that I've been putting in has paid off. I've done the thing. it's amazing, but that needs to come as a bonus of you already knowing that you are whole before you start the race, before you get the result. You're okay with yourself regardless of what happens next. And something interesting happens when we can get to that place. And I don't know if you've noticed this in yourself, because I think the person that you used to be versus the person that you are now is much more detached from the result. I don't know. I'm just speaking from like observation.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. And
Yeah.
I think, I guess the question is how to get there. But as you said, it does take time. And I think a lot of it takes experience. So for me, I get asked this question a bit like, because even in the professional team last year, people would see me going through some things that were really difficult objectively, and then people just picking up on things saying, okay, how have you dealt with that? Or, how did you... So, like, typical one that people might have seen was the Paris-Roubaix one, a lot of stuff going wrong, still just getting through it, finishing, and then getting that done, and then showing up to the next race, being okay. But I had, like, if people didn't... people don't sort of follow along and see the whole picture of that. So, like, it would start a long time ago in, like, having just races where I've DNF'd in the past or not finished because of bad circumstances, and then just being annoyed at myself because I knew that there was more that I could do in that circumstance. Even from, like, a specific short period, like the week before at Tour of Flanders, I'd had a crash early in the race. Took so long to get a spare bike at that time. By the time I got back, got the spare bike and, like, got on, there was no way of getting back to the bunch, and that was still 150k to go or whatever. So it was just the next week thinking, okay, like, this has happened before. This is how I felt because of the actions that I did then. So then it's easy for me to just be like, okay, well, I could just pull out now because I'm so far behind, but then I'll be more annoyed if I actually just did this next 4 hours of suffering by myself to get through the race. But I think even from a bigger standpoint, the getting by, like, getting past the not having a result go your way, or even not getting the contract that I wanted, or not being on a team that I wanted, or not having opportunities with the national team, whatever it was, a lot of that was going through those experiences myself in under 23 races, in when I was 20, 21 years old, and then to the point now where when I've had those things go wrong, I've been through it before. I know that I will get through it, and also I know that it's not actually the end of the world. Like, there's more to just being a cyclist, winning races, being on a good team, whatever. I guess the thing is, how do you get people to that point without... Because there's some lessons that have to be learnt, and I say this in training as well and in racing. Like, there's sometimes, as much as I will try and shortcut, tell people how to avoid making a mistake, there's some mistakes that are just going to be made at some point and need to be made. I guess in what you're doing, people are going to learn and become more headstrong themselves, and their mindset's going to improve through that experience and through things going badly. What steps are you taking to try and stop people having to make those mistakes that you've made in the past, that I've made in the past, where they're attaching too much to these race results, getting too caught up in what other people will think of them, getting too much self-worry? I guess, how are you trying to avoid people making these mistakes before they make them? And I guess, that's the tricky thing as a coach in your line of work.
That's an interesting question. I don't think I do try to avoid mistakes. I'm not trying to get people to, like, hey, go this way because I made that mistake and I don't want you to make the same mistake. Of course, I have that care and that desire for them to have a really smooth run, but I think the pain that we go through in life is what illuminates the good in life as well. Like, you can't have a resilient, strong athlete or strong person anyway without going through the ebbs and flows of life. And so what I'm doing on my end is, when those ebbs and flows come, I'm teaching them how to really honor the emotion that's in their body, the feelings that are in their body, so they can feel it all the way through, so it doesn't get trapped inside them, so they don't then carry it on to the next race and the next race and the next race. Like you were saying with what happens in the spring or at the start of the season, if someone has a shitty race and they're feeling bad about themselves, we go and honor that. Like, hey, you feel shit about yourself and it's okay to feel that. Let's feel all of that emotion all the way through so that then you can take a breath, come out the other side and remember who you really are without all of this attachment to the result. And so it's not about avoiding those mistakes of attaching your self-worth to a race. It's about noticing when they come up and having the self-awareness to pause and breathe and sit with it, instead of what most people do is they go, I'm feeling shit about myself, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to distract myself. Maybe I'll watch Netflix tonight. Maybe I'll have a beer with my friends tomorrow night. Maybe I'll go out and do a coffee ride or whatever, like with my friends the next day. And then we carry the same shit to the next race. And then it just digs a deeper hole and a deeper hole and a deeper hole because we haven't actually sat with ourselves, looked at ourselves in the mirror and gone, hey, how do you feel? What's going on in your inner world? Let's have a chat. Let's talk. And so that's what I'm trying to do with most of my clients, is not to avoid the bad things, but to embrace them and go, hey, let's learn about ourselves more because we had this experience.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I guess that would be where our two jobs differ a lot, because in my role of coach, as a coach, I do end up doing a lot of, and this is part of why I got you on, I end up being, I feel like, too much of a part-time psychologist for where my actual skill set lies. But then obviously there's a lot that I've learned from my experience. The thing that I find quite challenging is, as you sort of touched on at the start, just because I've had a certain experience doesn't mean someone else needs to have the same or will react the same to that experience. So I find in cycling we get a lot of people in the similar situations, feeling similar things, but people will respond to those in different ways. So then I guess for me, as from the physiology side of things, I'm trying to avoid those mistakes, trying to make sure that people are focusing their energy, focusing their training in the right direction that's going to cause that improvement. I guess it's really different from the mental side of things because, you don't always, I guess, have to be moving forward. Not that on the physiology side you do, but I guess it's just about learning to take those downs and be able to get through them to the point where it's not impacting your performance then. One of the questions I did have is that there is so many athletes that have a coach from the physiology side, and it's basically the thing that you're expected to have now if you're going to be trying to make it as a pro. There's good reason for why you would have that, because if you're obviously quite knowledgeable yourself on the physiology side, then you're able to implement things. But having that extra person to look over things is beneficial. I guess there's far less that are getting a mental coach or a mindset coach or even a sports psychologist, anything like that, to try and help them. And I think one thing that I sort of speak about with people is, because I'm a bit of a numbers guy, I like to think of percentages in terms of how we can improve. So the training, for a lot of people, I think, give too much credit for the training, and I probably shouldn't be saying this because of the name of the podcast, but the training's maybe like 25-30% in my mind, and then nutrition, you've maybe got 10%, recovery 10%. But honestly, and I'm sure you'd attest to this, maybe your percentages are a bit different. Mindset would be like 50% of it. And this is what I've learned from being around so many high performers, being around people that underperform for how they should, physiology wise. And I think so much of it that, people don't give credit for, they're trying to make these 2-3% improvements in training, in their nutrition, investing in their bike setup, whatever it is. Yet the mindset can be such a big player in that, because if you rock up at the start line and you don't want to be there, or if you're overly worried, overly nervous, not nervous enough, not caring enough, like either way the needle bends. I think there's not enough investment in that, I would say, or just focus on that side of it for the performance gain that there is. The question I have for you is, why do you think this is the case? I'm sure I'm going to guess that you would agree with me in that it does play a big role, but why are athletes not focusing more on this side of things?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. First of all, I absolutely agree. I think your percentages are pretty on point. But I think people are not investing because it hasn't been a thing. Like if you think about the generations before us, the guys that the images of a cyclist back in the 80s or even before that were just so hard. They were just like these, they just pushed through and they'd crash and they just get back up and they'd keep going, and it was just like this grit. And cycling has this picture, a lot of sport has this picture of like you just keep going no matter what you're going through, no matter what's going on at home, no matter how you feel as a person. You just get up and you get the training done, and there are no excuses, and you've just got to keep going. And I think on the opposite side of that, the psychology part of it, or the mindset, the mental health part of it, has been also got this label of being soft. And it's like, oh, if you talk about your emotions, if you talk about your feelings, if you talk about what's going on at home, you're soft. You're kind of softening. And people don't want to soften. They want to stay really hard and they want to get shit done. That's why so many people love David Goggins, because he's like, just go, stay hard. And I cringe at that because it's not allowing for the full human in the sport. And something that I really struggled with when I was an athlete was I felt like I was just seen as a number, that nobody actually cared about how I felt. Nobody cared about me missing home. Nobody cared about the fact that I hadn't seen my partner for 9 months. Like, no one cared about that. And maybe they did, but it wasn't shown to you. There was no space to talk about it. There was no space to feel. You just had to get up and keep going no matter what. And I really, really struggled with that because I guess for my whole life I've been a compassionate person and I really care about how other people feel. So to have the opposite kind of happen to me when I went overseas, I was like, wait, what the heck is going on? Like, am I not a human to you guys? Am I just a number? And same thing when I was going through, I think I talked about on the last podcast that we caught up on, the body image issues that I went through and the eating or disordered eating that I went through. Like, none of that seemed like a problem to them. It was just like, oh yeah, this is just something that everyone goes through. Just deal with it yourself. Like, we don't really want to talk about your issues with your body or your feelings around food or whatever. Like, just keep going. So I think, to answer your question, most people have this view of the mindset and the mental work or the emotional work as something that is making them soft, and they don't want to go into it. They don't want to open up Pandora's box because they're scared of all the feelings that are going to fall out. But that's what needs to happen. That's what actually needs to happen. You need to open it up to let all those emotions pour out so that you can find yourself again and come back to this place of true confidence, not confidence that is just being masked by, like we talked about, the results that are happening for you. And I'm sure anybody who has been on a journey of healing and growth or mindset work or whatever psychology, they know that out the other side of going through that tunnel of darkness, which you do temporarily go through when you start to open up all the stuff that's inside, out the other side, you become a much, much more resilient, driven version of yourself. You become this version that is way less shakeable, like way less movable. You're not just feeling shit about yourself one day and then feeling really great the next. You're more solid in who you are and how you feel about yourself on a consistent basis. And I think that's what most athletes need to sort of wake up to.
I really would agree that it's a funny one because it used to be similar, I guess, maybe 20, 30 years ago before I was in the sport from a physiology side and a coaching side, in that the training was just get people away for a training camp. Like even at junior level, I remember hearing stories about this. They'd take like all these under 19 cyclists, you'd get 10 of them go to a training camp and they'd just ride them into the ground every day until at the end of the week there was 2 or 3 left that could get through the training, and they said, right, these guys are going to be a pro. And then so the 7 or 8 that couldn't get through that week lost to the sport. Now, from a physiology side, we're at the point now where we go, okay, different people will respond to training in different ways. It's better to have this incremental load. Some people don't need as much training. Some people might need more of one thing or the other. And this way you've got like certain different phenotypes, body types, natural abilities, whatever, will get to a level where they can be a professional cyclist. So back in the day, it was purely who could handle that. The sport's evolved a bit. Even on the nutrition side, like we would have had people in the past that were not fueling enough, and then back maybe 20 years ago, it would have just been, okay, this person is too skinny or they're never strong enough. And then nowadays we've taught them, okay, you might need to eat more. Conversely, like other people, it's okay, you need to eat more at this point, but less at this point. And then you've got this when you might have had 2 out of a group of 10 that were actually the right body shape or body type to be a cyclist. 5 out of 10 can then suddenly be a pro cyclist. But from the mindset side, I think we're still a little bit behind, because it's if you're not tough enough, you've picked the wrong sport, get out of this sport. And it is a crazy hard sport, and mentally really challenging because of reasons we've already touched on, both in the race itself and then, the travel side of things of being away from home for so long. But I think if you're only allowing the people that are mentally just able to cop anything that's thrown at them and get through it from the word go, from the moment they leave school and want to be a pro cyclist, then you're just losing all of these people that would actually have the talent to be there, have what it takes, have the potential to have a really great career, and you're just losing all of them because they're not being given the support from the mindset side. So I think it is coming in more now, but I think we're still losing cyclists to the mindset side, when even from within a team perspective, you might have a cyclist that starts the year poorly and then the team basically gives up on them. And if things start going badly, it's just, okay, they don't have what it takes, they're not mentally strong enough, give up on them, we'll replace them with another number for next year, like another person that can do the same what's on the front, and hopefully they're mentally strong enough. What I think then you're just losing out on the potential that these athletes have if they get the support from the mental side of things, if they overcome those things and get those strategies to get through them to the point where they're able to be mentally as resilient as the athletes that they're up against, able to arrive at the start line mentally ready to go, get that 50% boost. Then they're going to be just as competitive or better than the people that they might have the physiological talent to be better, but it's the mindset side that's holding them back. So if they can work on that, then they'll get to that point where they're able to win those races.
It feels like a no-brainer, and it's like, obviously we both agree that it's something that more people need to invest more into, more time, more energy, more money into. Teams could really, really benefit from having, someone who's dedicated. I know that there's more teams that are having sports psychologists on their team as a regular tool for the riders to use, which is an amazing thing to see. But I think also having like someone in your back pocket that you can message when you just wake up on a certain day and you feel like, hey, I don't have it today, I want to dive in and see what's underneath, see what my subconscious has been up to in my sleep or the day before, or whatever has contributed to this low mood. And having the tools to be able to unpack that in the moment, so you're not carrying it for weeks or months into the next races, is, I think, a really essential thing that is going to become a necessity. Like, if I'm honest, there's going to be this just no-brainer. Everyone's going to start realizing, like, hey, this is actually something that I need if I want to perform at my best, not something that's like a luxury to, give me that extra 1%. So, I really agree.
Yep. And then I guess, so a lot of the stuff we've talked about has been off the bike. One question I have for you is, you're in this rare position where there's not too many people working on the mindset side of things that have been a pro cyclist themselves. On the bike, is there anything that you're doing? So if we're talking mentally, there's two things that I always find that athletes have trouble with, especially newer cyclists, is cornering or descending. They're both quite similar. And then bunch positioning. Is there strategies that, and these are two, for me, they're more mental things and confidence things. There's definitely technique involved, both cornering and descending, and then bunch positioning. But for the most part, I see what's holding people back in these is confidence, and also the ability to to have that fight, I guess, if it's bunch positioning. So you have to really want to be there and want to push yourself in front of others and feel like you deserve to be in front of that wheel that someone's fighting you for. Is there tactics that you're using to work with people on the on-bike stuff, or is it still more off the bike and hoping that confidence then carries through to on the bike?
I think a lot of the time when athletes are coming up to races, we do end up having conversations about tactics, and naturally I get pretty excited about talking about the actual race in itself and what they can do in the race to really honour the work that we've been doing, off the bike. But in training and in racing, some tools that I've given athletes recently to boost their confidence is something really, really simple that goes a really long way is affirmations while you're doing a really, really hard effort. So think about like VO2 max efforts. And this is something that the listeners can take away as well. If you notice next time you're doing a really, really hard effort, what are the thoughts that are in your head? If it's like, oh, I can't do this, or oh my God, this is so hard, or whatever is your default pattern is going to come up in those moments. So some of the reprogramming work that I do with athletes is to flood their subconscious with positive affirmations while they're doing those really hard efforts so that can help them switch their default patterning to, I can do this, there's more to me, like I've got more to give, or whatever it is for you. It's got to be something that actually feels authentic for you. So that's one thing to practice in training, which then transfers over into a race. Obviously, that's what training is about. And then in terms of the skills, like the cornering or the positioning, the bunch skills, like you said, this is a massive confidence thing. And a lot of the time when people are not able to hold position, it's because they don't feel like they belong there. So again, something to reprogram the subconscious is to find the pockets where you feel like you don't belong and then go and insert yourself into those bits. So for example, if it's like you'll notice this in the next race that you observe if you haven't noticed it already, but all of the favorites tend to hang out together. Yeah. They tend to put themselves around each other because they are more comfortable around each other. This is where they know they belong. This is what they're familiar with. And it's just a subconscious thing that's happening. Even if they don't know they're doing it, they will still be doing it. And so as someone who wants to progress in the sport, you've got to start being comfortable around those kind of people that you want to start getting the same results as, for example. So if you want to be top 10 or top 20, go and ride around the people that you always know are top 10 or top 20. And you're going to be nervous, right? You're going to be like, oh, I don't feel like I belong here. Oh my God, this is unfamiliar. And just push past that barrier into knowing, I do belong here. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is who I am. And all of this can happen because you've done the deeper foundational work first. This is not something that you can just miraculously do because you've heard this on the podcast with me. First, you have to go into the deeper stuff that I talked about before, like where is all of this lack of self-belief or lack of confidence coming from in the first place? And usually it stems from childhood or past experiences that you haven't healed from yet. So that's where you need to go first and heal beyond those parts. So then you can add like these sprinkles on top, so to speak. And I was going to say earlier too, like when we get to these points of almost reprogramming in the race on the day, it has to come from a place of fun, not pressure. So when you have built foundations of self-worth from the inside out, from the ground up, you know your worth without the results attached to it, cycling becomes fun again. We get to actually go into the race and play. We're like, we've done all the work. That's all behind us. Yes, there's going to be some nerves, of course, if you're lining up at a Cobble Classic or Flanders or Roubaix or whatever it is. Like, oh my gosh, yes, there's going to be nerves. But today is the day to play. Like, here we are, let's go. And that's where you can add these sprinkles of like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm going to push into this pocket that I haven't been before and I'm going to see if I can hold it for 30 seconds. And that can be your game for the day. And when we start gamifying racing like this, it becomes less about the pressure to perform and more about you just seeing what you've got on the day. And I think that's a really fun way to approach racing. And so that's kind of the tools that, in a nutshell, some of the tools that we're using.
No, I think that's awesome because I've experienced the opposite side of that, I guess, in terms of motivation. And this is from sports directors that I've worked with in the past that are trying to motivate with that pressure or almost motivate by fear. So then
Mm.
I guess, and it translates into what you're talking about in training as well. But the we had a meeting last year, and it was with the Spring Classics team. Halfway through the Spring Classics, we had a few races that hadn't gone well. And we got sat down in the bus, and the sports director said, okay, every single person in this team doesn't have a contract yet for next year. If I were you guys, I'd all be really worried. And this is straight before the race. So,
Mm.
and then obviously all the riders start getting really worried because it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on a sec, we're all going to lose our contracts here. What the hell? Everyone, he's trying to motivate people out of fear of, okay, I need to perform today because otherwise I don't have a job next year. And then
Mm-hmm.
everyone's so paranoid then about trying to avoid doing the wrong thing that
Mm-hmm.
no one's having that fun aspect, no one's playing. So yeah, the
Mm-hmm.
positioning's good, but the positioning's good in a way that from our team that day in a way that they don't want to be anywhere near the back of the bunch to be seen from the team car at the wrong point. So then you get these riders just riding in the wind kind of for no reason and then also just doing it out of fear the whole time thinking, oh, I don't want to be too far back, I don't want to get dropped, or this kind of stuff, rather than, as you sort of said, and I really love that strategy of putting yourself in the position with the best riders and
Mm.
where you in the past felt like you didn't belong.
Mm.
That side of things, there's none of that sort of positive motivation. It's all trying to avoid the negative. But even from the
Mm.
training side, I think that's really a great opportunity to practice it in training. I'd never really thought about it, even because, yeah,
Mm.
you can't practice the bunch positioning or even cornering so much in a safe way. Like descending, as much as I sort of encourage people to try it sometimes in training, it's never going to be the same as in a race because you don't have a closed road. It's not safe, whatever.
Yeah.
But to be able to practice that kind of stuff mentally in your hard efforts is really cool. And it's something that I realized I'd done and hadn't thought about. But if you're thinking, oh, I can't do this, this is too hard, I'm not going to be able to get through this, within the next
Mm.
10 seconds, you're stopping the effort and going, oh, I can't do the session. As soon as those thoughts
Mm-hmm.
start getting in. But for
Mm-hmm.
me, yeah, sometimes I'll be suffering along during a VO2 max effort, threshold effort, whatever it is. And then my thing, which I hadn't even thought about from this aspect until you mentioned it then, but I'll just give myself, and I'll say it out loud. Sometimes it's a come on, so it's not necessarily like that. It's not that positive. And then often if it's halfway through an effort or like getting towards the end, it'll just be I'll
Mm-hmm.
actually say out loud, "You can do this." And
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't thought of it so much as a mindset thing, but actually, this is something I'd recommend to people to do in training, especially is even the act of saying it out loud. Obviously, it means more you're
Mm-hmm.
hearing it as
Mm-hmm.
well as thinking it. But then just simply the fact if I'm doing an effort and I talk out loud, I'm like, well, this can't be that hard because I've said something out loud. So and then also just that sort of rings through your head and then through the effort. So it's and then there's a lot of mental tricks like that that you can use. Yeah, I guess in training that also transfer into a race scenario as well. But I think
Mm.
it's interesting that you can work on the mindset side of those things in training, even when you're not in a bunch to practice your bunch positioning, for example. Just those positive thoughts and motivating yourself out of the positive affirmations in the moment, because that positioning is so much about you can get in this destructive pattern of getting shuffled back, thinking, okay, well, this is where I belong. I'm not
Mm.
good enough to be at the front with these riders. But as you said, if you've done the work before that to be at the point where you have that belief and that confidence, and then it's a matter of it's fun to push yourself into that space where you before felt like you didn't belong. And I've spoken
Yeah.
to pro riders about this before, complete different sides of the coin. In Nice with a few mates last year, we were having this conversation where we're all doing the biggest races at the time, and one of the riders had just done Amstel Gold, and he said, I was so scared because there was a few times I was in front of Pogacar and I was like, don't crash, don't
Mm.
crash, don't crash. And
Mm.
I'd get so scared riding around other riders because of this. And then, one of my other mates just said, I'd love being like in amongst them because I'm just like, oh, this is cool. I'm riding against the best riders in the world in there. I'm going to be on
Yeah.
TV right now for sure and not worried at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really different, the mindsets that you get even at the top level of the sport in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so interesting to start thinking about that. Like, oh, I wonder what their mindset is while they're on their limit. And sometimes when you watch racing, you can really tell when a rider is giving themselves good positive chats in their head versus when they're not. Like, they'll have body language that'll be different. And our language is always speaking to our body, and our body is always speaking to our mind. It's this constant communication that's going on. So if you think, oh, it doesn't really matter that much of what I'm saying in my head, next time you're at training, try it. Try and flood yourself with really negative shit and see how it affects like how you feel physically, and then immediately do the opposite and see how it lifts you up, see how it gives you more energy. And you can see, like I said, you can see this in races so easily when you look at riders' faces, when you look at their body language, what the best are saying to themselves essentially, which I find really interesting now to look at and to notice. And yeah, I love that reflection at the top that they are working on this stuff. If you feel like, pro riders aren't really working on their mindset, there's so many that are.
Yeah.
And that's how you can help yourself. If you're not yet pro, that's how you can help yourself get to that level. I really feel like it's a huge part of it.
Yeah, massively. I'll get to the last few questions now, or we will be here forever. But one which is just a cheap one for me, because this is probably what most people would be paying you the big bucks for. But if I've got it, but it's more so the listeners can take home, because a lot of people will be in similar situations. If I've got a race, and this is true, it's not a hypothetical. So in 2 weeks, I've got a stage race. I've been preparing like really well on the bike. Everything's actually been going pretty well. Haven't had too many, any issues on the physiology side. Form's where it needs to be. What is something that you would say that's really important to make sure that I'm in mentally the best shape for this race coming up in 2 weeks' time, that I've prepared physiology-wise really well for, done all the training for? Mentally, what's the best thing for me to do coming into this race to make sure I get the most from myself?
Do you have 90 minutes?
Yeah. That's the thing. Just one little thing, if you can give me a taste of what I should be doing.
Oh, goodness gracious. I feel like, so what I do a lot of when I'm working with people one-on-one is I read their energy. So it's not just about, this is a blanket statement for anybody and everybody that they can take home. It's about you, Cyrus, how you're feeling, what you've told me about how you've been lately, all of these things that are going into it. But to give you something tangible to take away, I feel like the best thing that you could do is to ground into that confidence that you just expressed to me every day. So to make sure that you're reminding yourself you've done the work, you've been feeling really good in training. There's essentially nothing that should be holding you back from having the best time on race day. And I would also make it about having the best time, not about, again, the result that you want to get. You can have a goal, you can have something that you are leaning towards, but don't attach your worth to that. So lining up on the start line, it should be about, how can I best express my true potential into the world today, into the race, and how am I going to make that my focus, rather than, geez, I hope I get third today, or I hope I get first today, like whatever it is. And so having said all of that, I would get yourself like a journal or some sort of tangible morning routine that you can practice on a daily basis to remind yourself of your confidence, of all of the work that you've done, of who you are and why you're here and why you're riding your bike, rather than because what tends to happen, we go from Australia to Europe, travel is going to be hectic, there's going to be shit that goes wrong, and then we start to doubt ourselves, we start to doubt all the work that we've put in. And this happened to one of my riders actually the other day. She went from the US to Europe, and she got there and she was doing race recon of Newsblad, and she was like, all of a sudden, she went from feeling really good about her physiology and all the work that she'd put in, feeling really good mentally as well, to, oh my God, can I actually do it? there's all of these other riders around me that maybe look like they're better form than me, blah, 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 like start getting into her head. And I just said to her, just because you got on a plane and went from the US to Europe does not mean that you lost all of your form. Like, it came with you. So just keep grounding into all the work that you've put in mentally and physically to be here, and remind yourself of why you are here. And it is to play and it is to have fun. Because she's also at the point in her career where she's got a lot of years behind her. She's got a lot of results behind her. So she doesn't really need to prove anything. It's just about being there and having fun now. And so I think that's her advantage, really, is that she's got all the results. She doesn't need to prove anything anymore. So it's just about having fun now. And yeah, just those little reminders to ourselves, I feel like, go a huge way.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And it's something that I've started doing a bit more of with my own coaching, and when I'm prepping people for a race, for the mental side of things as well. And it's because my number one thing in my coaching philosophy is just increasing someone's enjoyment of the sport. So if I can increase their enjoyment of the sport, they're going to be riding faster 100% of the time. I'm yet to see someone that has enjoyed the sport more and gotten worse as a result of the training or anything that they're doing. So for me, coming into race day as well, I try and put a big focus on that. And it's really tricky because most people have that performance goal, and that's also part of why we're doing what we're doing. Like, you train because you want to win. You're not doing all the training thinking, or a lot of people actually will train for, say, a Gran Fondo or a race so that they can enjoy it more, for sure. But the thing in the back of your mind is usually, I want to get this result. So then it's hard to keep that focus on enjoying it on race day. But I think it's really important. And it's a funny one because my mum always says it to me, literally before the race. The only thing she'll message is enjoy the race. Doesn't matter if it's Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, or like a local club race. She'll just send a message saying enjoy the race. And it's never good luck. She'll never ever wish good luck. And it's something that I've started doing to my athletes. I will still wish good luck sometimes, but I don't so much believe in luck, and it's more you make your own luck, that kind of thing. And also saying good luck. Yeah. Good luck, you can't do anything about good luck. You can't say, oh, geez, I really want to be lucky today. Whereas you can actually go, okay, I'm going to try and enjoy this race. How can I enjoy this race? So when someone's built up for a long time for a big goal, whether it's, for the Olympics, for Melbourne to Warrnambool, when it's their big goal, I think so many people get caught up on trying to get that result because they've put all the work in. But for most people, their big goal is also going to be a chance to have one of their most enjoyable days on the bike ever. So if someone's trained up for the Olympics and that's been their big goal, they're never going to get to race in a crowd like that again. Well, unless they do another Olympics or another thing like that. But in your mind, you almost have to be thinking, okay, this could be the only chance I get to do this, or not that, but like being that much in the moment that you just think, this is crazy how big a crowd I've got. Even if it's like the Melbourne to Warrnambool, from probably a race that you would have loved if they had the women's version back in the day, because it's out your neck of the woods. But for a lot of people in Australia, that's their grand final, their big race. Enjoy that race. It's a historic race. It's the longest race for women in the world still. I think for men, it's the second longest running race in the world. It's got so much history. People can forget to actually enjoy it and focus on having fun when they get there. And then if you're enjoying it, having fun, the result's going to be as good as it can be anyway. So I think, it's a good reminder for me, especially coming into this race where I'm expecting to go well. Not so much expecting to go well, but hoping that I go really well. They've done the work. But it's a good reminder to actually, I really want to enjoy this as well. And if I'm focusing on that more so and putting more emphasis on that in my mind, then I'm not going to be as worried or anxious or nervous, which is going to be detrimental to performance. Instead, I'm going to be in that place of having the confidence, but then also wanting to have fun. And that's going to be the most beneficial thing from a performance side as well.
Exactly. You hit the nail on the head at the end, that when you have fun, you actually perform at your best. Like, a happy athlete is the best athlete that they can be. And by the way, when we're saying this, we're not taking away the seriousness of the result or the seriousness of like you heading into the Olympics or heading into this race. Like, it is serious, and you can be serious about it whilst also enjoying it. And it comes back to, why do you want the result that you want? Why do you actually want to get the win, or why do you want to get the top 10? Is it because you're defined by it and you need it in order to feel good enough in yourself? Or is it because you just fucking love to get a top 10, or you'd love to win? And when we have that switch in our mind, like, yeah, I would actually just really love to win, then it becomes about enjoyment again. It becomes about, oh, like that would be an awesome thing to experience. Imagine that, and let yourself imagine crossing the line first. Let yourself imagine your victory. Let yourself imagine standing on the podium. Let yourself imagine all of those things from an enjoyment perspective. And then when you get out into the race, you can enjoy it and you can have fun. And you can be serious whilst enjoying it. There's like this play on the seriousness that we get to have, where the seriousness doesn't turn into stress and anxiety because I just am white knuckled and jaw clenched about getting this result. It's more so, yeah, I'm serious about winning because I would really, really want to win. Like that would light my soul on fire. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I think, yes. And while you're saying that, I'm thinking about the best athletes in the sport and how they're doing that when they're performing at their best. And you see in cycling, you get a bit of an insight into the people behind it as well, behind these results. But if you're looking at the best guys in the world, you see that their best results, they're really enjoying it, both during and then after the race. And then conversely, when they're not performing, you can see that they're just genuinely not enjoying the race as it's happening after the race, that kind of thing, when they're at their worst as well. So it definitely goes hand in hand. I will go very last question now, and it's tricky because you've given us so much of this throughout the episode. I want your best piece of advice for people listening. So anyone that's listened to this whole thing has got so much advice I'm sure they can use. I certainly have. It might be something that you've already mentioned so far, but best piece of advice for people listening.
If you're feeling like you have blocks, limiting beliefs, doubts in your mind, stop trying to train harder and do more, and actually start to go within and do the courageous thing of going within. Like, look at yourself in the mirror and start to learn yourself. And that takes time. It takes stillness. It takes slowing down, which as an athlete, we don't want to do. We're like, no, thank you. I don't want to slow down. I don't want to, stop doing. And that's the really important part, is we're stuck in do. And in order to overcome the blocks that are keeping you stuck in mediocrity, you have to actually slow down and sit with yourself and talk to those demons that are inside, get to know their names, get to know what's underneath, where did it all come from, and start to heal from that place. And the best way that you can do that, I'm not just saying this, is to have someone to help you see your own blind spots. So whoever that is, even if it's a friend that you're just venting to and you know that friend has your back and that they're the type of person that usually says the right thing and not the wrong thing, then go and talk to that friend about how you're feeling. It honestly will change everything if we can learn to look at ourselves in that way and learn ourselves in that way.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And it is such a tricky thing for athletes to do. I know for a fact that the athletes that have worked with you have got the rewards from it, because, it is a courageous thing to go, okay, the easy thing to do, as much as it doesn't seem easy, is to just keep going, smashing yourself on the training track. Mentally, it's a challenge each day to get out the door, but at the same time, it's easier because it's almost less work mentally to just go and train each day rather than to actually go to the effort of unpacking that stuff, unpacking, rearranging everything, putting yourself back together and being able to actually get the most from yourself. But for a lot of athletes, it is what is required. And then also, for anyone, I think there is definitely room for improvement. And so many people have a coach. When they know what they're doing, they'll get a coach from the training side just to have an extra set of eyes to look over everything, to be able to bounce ideas off, to make sure that they're not doing the wrong things, I guess, and to be reinforced when they're doing the right things. So there is just going to be value in that for everyone, I think, from the mental and mindset side of things as well, to, okay, I think I'm going okay here. Is there ways I can improve? Might get someone on board to try and assess this and like see whether they think I'm doing the right thing, see whether I am in the good space that I think I'm in, and see if there's any improvements I can make that's then going to help my performance. Because yeah, as I said, it's 50%. In my eyes, it's about 50% of what you can get out of yourself on race day is from that side of things. So I think it's well worth the investment. I think anyone that is looking to see more of you or to get in touch with you can go on your Instagram, which is at Shannon Malseed, if I'm correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at Shannon Malseed. You see a lot of the stuff that she's putting out as well, which we've touched on today. There's a hell of a lot more that we haven't touched on, and we could do 7 podcast episodes of this length to go into it all. But yeah, I know athletes that Shannon is working with that are getting a lot out of it. So yeah, it is something that is really cool that you're doing this to help the athletes that are at their worst mentally, and then also athletes that are close to their best, you're able to help them as well. So it is really cool what you're doing, and it's great to see you working with so many cyclists again.
Yay. Thanks.
Thanks so much for coming on. Everyone make sure you give Shannon a follow. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast below. Share it with your friends if you love it. And yeah, see you next time. Thank you.